Hello. Good morning, everyone. So it's just 2 years ago that we shipped Silverlight 1. And with Silverlight 1, we gave developers the ability to build rich internet applications that ran cross-browser and cross-platform using JavaScript and XAML. Then a year later, actually at PDC last year, we shipped Silverlight 2. And Silverlight 2 introduced the power of managed code and the .NET framework to Silverlight. We had new features like built-in controls and new application services like data binding and styling. And we had new media features like the ability for folks to change bit rates on custom media players. And we saw great experiences being built on top of Silverlight. The Summer Olympics in Beijing viewing experience, Netflix Online. And that was just a year ago. 5 months ago, so in July of this year, we shipped Silverlight 3. And Silverlight 3 had a host of new improvements. We had new graphics features like bitmap effects and perspective transforms. We had new media features like H.264 support. And we gave developers the ability to run their Silverlight applications out of browser. Well, keeping that momentum forward and our rapid release cycle, as Scott announced in the keynote, we are shipping today Silverlight 4 Beta. For Silverlight 4 Beta, we concentrated the feature set around 3 main areas. The first was to make it easier and better for you to build business applications on top of Silverlight. The second was to add new media features to continue to make Silverlight a first-class, world-class media platform. And finally, to extend what it is that you can do whenever you build your Silverlight applications to run out of browser. My name is Karen Corby, and I am a program manager on the Silverlight team. And it is my extreme pleasure today to give you the first look, an in-depth tour of Silverlight 4 Beta. Applause. To start out, I'm going to go quickly into a demo and show off 3 often requested features that folks have needed to build business Silverlight applications. Being able to drag a file into a Silverlight control, right-click support, and printing. In this demo, you'll see Visual Studio 2010 Beta 2 and a look at the Silverlight Interactive Design Service. Later in the presentation, you'll also see Expression Blend Preview for .NET 4 and Silverlight 4, so our tools for Silverlight 4. And with that, let's step into a demo. So the first app that we're going to build is a scrapbook application. And I'll run it once just to give us a feel of what we're trying to do. So here's my scrapbook. Ideally, I have these photos, and I'd like to be able to drag it into my scrapbook. But of course, by default, the browser is just going to handle that navigate for me. So let's add drag drop to this application. I'm going to go in here, and on my main page, you'll see that I have some grids, specifically one here that I've called Notebook. And in that, I've got that image that looks like a notebook as well as a canvas. I'll select the canvas in the designer and go to the Allow Drop property and click True. And then in the Events tab, I'm going to handle the drop event. So I'll double-click to get a default handler. To make this a little bit easier, I'm going to open up a snippet manager just so you don't catch me making typos. Now, inside of this drop handler, I'm going to copy in a few lines. I'll go into the drag event args and grab the data property, which will give me an iData object. And then from that, I'll grab the list of files that are dropped in. From there, I will iterate over all the files. So here I have a for each loop. I'm making sure that the file that's being dropped in is an image. I'm opening up that file, grabbing the stream, creating a custom image frame, which is a control I just created. And then finally, all I need to do is add that frame to my drop target canvas. So with just a few lines of code and a couple properties in XAML, I can rerun this. And here, I can drag in an image. Oop. There we have it. Now this looks okay, but eventually I'd like to print this thing. And while I can move these around, I'd like them to be a little bit more interesting, maybe rotate them. So intuitively, what I'd like to do is have a context menu. But when I right-click, all I get is the Silverlight context menu. So let's go ahead and add that next. Going into my imageframe.cs, this again is my custom control. I can handle the right mouse button down event. So in here, I'm just handling this and setting the event arcs handled property to be true. This tells Silverlight that I don't want them to show the default context menu. And then in the right button up, I will grab the point at which the button was clicked, and then show my own custom context menu. So rerunning this again. Now I have the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre. I can right-click this one, send it back, rotate these to make it a little bit more interesting. So just like that, I now have my own custom right-click context menu. Now let's make sure that this thing can print. So this print button is obviously not hooked up yet. Going back into mainpage.xaml, I can click on this print button, go over here, select the button. There we go. Grab the click event, double click so that I create a new click handler. So now that I've got, wow, that was loud. Now that I have a click handler, I need to start hooking up printing. The main print API inside of Silverlight 4 is an API called print document. So I'll go ahead and create a new one. And then inside of my print handler, I can give this print document a name, and I can tell it to go ahead and print. So that means when I click on the print button, the print dialog that's shown via the print method will show up for the user, and the user can select the different print settings. Now, in order to tell Silverlight what I actually want to print, I need to listen to the print page event on the print document. So here I can say print document dot print page, create a new event handler, and inside of that, where'd it go? There we go. Inside of that, I'll go ahead and specify that I want the print visuals for this print document to just be that notepad grid that was in my main page. And then I'll set has more pages equal to false. And that's because in this case, I just want to print a single page. If I wanted to print more, this API gives me the option to do a paginated print. So hitting Control F5, I can drag in a few things here. Maybe rotate a few of these. And then print. I'm going to print to OneNote. So again, I hooked up the print button. I got the print dialog. OneNote is now churning. And give me the selection. And you can tell in a second that my scrapbook is going to show up. And you'll notice here that this is just the notepad. The print button is not there. Okay? So calling out a little bit more about printing. In Silverlight 4, we do allow you to customize whatever shows up in your print. It can be some visuals that you grab from the live tree, or you can create on-the-fly dynamically visuals that never appear on the screen to the user, but is what you want to show as your actual print document. Silverlight 4 printing is bitmap-based. It's also event-based, and that's how you control pagination if you want it. David Pohl will be going further into this later today in his talk, and I'll give you more information about that later. So as I mentioned, we added in Silverlight 4 a lot of new media features. I'm not going to cover most of these in depth in the overview. There is a media talk tomorrow that I'll point you at. But just as a call out, we did add multicast support, which allows you to play back multicast files from WMS. We also added offline DRM support so that users can now watch their DRM content while they're offline and disconnected. We also added MP4 DRM as well as output protection to protect against content being shown onto external monitors. And the last one is webcam, and that's actually the focus of our next demo. In Silverlight 4 webcam, in order for you to actually access the device, you do need to prompt the user. Once that happens, you will get access to the raw video and audio streams, and we do provide the ability for you to decide which audio device or webcam device you want to use on the machine. So with that, let's go into another demo. Okay, I'm going to run this demo quickly. It doesn't have any of the functionality, but just so that we can have a feel of, again, what we're trying to build. So here's my PDC photo booth. I want to eventually be able to click the Start menu and have my webcam preview start. I'd like to be able to capture an image and store it down here, and also be able to select which webcam I'm using, and finally to print it. So let's get started. Inside of my main page.xaml.cs, you'll see that I have a Start button click handler that we're going to fill in. Let me go back and get my snippets. Okay, so inside of my Start button, the first thing I need to do is check whether or not I have access to get to the devices. And I do that by querying capture device configuration.allow device access. If that comes back false, I then can request access via request device access method. Once I've done that, and the user has been prompted, we need to go ahead and hide that Start button, and then go ahead and start my webcam. That's a helper function we're about to create, so I can drag in that code. So here's my Start webcam helper. The first thing it does is create a new capture source. And what the capture source does is it's an API that links the actual device with the audio and video raw streams. So here I'm creating a capture device. Since I'm not specifying a particular device, it's just going to use the default webcam on the machine. I then can create a video brush and set that video brush's source to this capture source I just created, and then fill a canvas that I have on my main page with that preview brush. And to get it completely started, I just have to tell the capture source to start. So with that, I can click on this. I can click Start. I'll get it prompted. I'm going to hit yes. And in a second, you'll be able to see a very flattering view of my nose. Anyways, so let's next hook up the capture button. So in order for me to capture a series of images, I first need to have a list that I can put those images into. So I'll go back up here and create an observable collection of writable bitmaps. I call this capture images. And then inside of my capture button, I can drag in here and simply call async capture on my capture source and give it a call back to add the captured image to the collection we just created. So now, hitting Control F5 again, I can hit Start and capture several of these. Cool. Yeah, it's pretty easy. Okay, well, I don't want to hog all the fun up here, so I'm going to plug in a webcam externally. And now what I have to do is allow the ability to toggle between the two different webcams. I can do this by populating the webcam combo box that I have, by setting the item source of that combo box to be capture device configurations, get all available video capture devices. And that'll list all the devices on the machine. Then I have to do a couple things to make sure I'm just completely hooked up. Inside of my webcam list selection changed, when someone changes the webcam, I actually need to restart my webcam, which means that inside of Start Webcam, I can't assume that I'm always creating a new capture source. I need to instead here check if this is the first time I've run the application and create it. And if not, go ahead and just stop the capture source that I have. And if necessary, set the video capture device to be the selected value of that webcam list. So running this again, I can hit start, go here, give you guys your 10 seconds of fame in a second. Oop. Okay, I'm going to try this one more time. Oh, I froze. There we go. Try that one more time. Did I miss something in here? Yes. What did I miss? I'm sorry? Oh, there we go. Thank you. That got deleted somehow. Oh. Oh, it's because I put it in the wrong place. Let's try this. The tricky thing about snippets. There you go. Thank you. Okay. So everyone smile. 1, 2. And then I'm going to switch over here for a hopefully further away shot of me this time. And now I'll go ahead and grab all of these. And again, just to show off the print feature again, because I like it so much, here's a preview of what I want to print, which is just a little film strip. And I'll go ahead and send that one also to OneNote. And while that's sending, I'm going to go back over here. Okay. So that was webcam. So moving on, in addition to media features, we've also added some new networking features. We've added UDP listener support, which allows you to build a custom multicast solution on top of Silverlight if you want. We do support 2 types of multicast, both single source and multi-source, and we'll go ahead and use that in our next demo. Like a lot of our networking features, a policy server is required for this, just to make sure that the right thing happens from a security standpoint. In Silverlight, we also have 2 different networking stacks, in case you didn't know. The first is the browser stack, and that's the networking stack that is associated with the browser that the Silverlight app is running in. However, in Silverlight 3, we added a client networking stack, and that networking stack actually talks directly to the underlying operating system networking layer. So in Silverlight 4, in that client networking stack, we've added the ability to provide your own authorization. So we have NTLM support, basic support, and digest support. And we'll show that in a second as well. Also, just as a call out, we are now automatically adding the refer header to all outgoing requests. So in this next demo, I'm not going to go deep into the UDP multicast code, and so I just wanted to throw up an important API here so you can see it. I am going to be using a multi-source multicast client, so I'll new up one of those. And then 3 important APIs are begin join group, begin send to group, and begin receive from group. And with that, we'll go into our next demo. This is a classroom proctor sort of application. So here we go. close up the rest of these and open this. So I already have up here, like I said, a UDP policy server running, so this whole thing should just work out of the box. Hitting Control F5. Here is my Classroom Proctor app, and I can type, hello, I would like to ask a question, with a lot of typos. So I can talk back to myself. I can even open up a new window and talk to myself from a different window. Sure, ask away. But of course, that's a lot less interesting. What we need in this application is actually the ability to log in. And so that's what we're going to add next. Now you'll notice that this is the home page and this is the About page. And what I'm going to add is the ability to, whenever you're trying to navigate directly to the home page, for us to first log in. So let's look at how we would do that. This application has several views. So I have an About view, an Error window, a Home view, and a Login view. And these are the pages that my main page can navigate to. So if I open up main page, you'll see here that I have a grid and an image, of course. But deeper in here, I have a frame. And within this frame, I have a URI mapper, and that just makes it so that my URIs can be shorter and friendlier for the user. But what I really need is some way to hook into the Navigate to determine, hey, if you're going to the home page, please redirect to the login page. And fortunately, in Silverlight 4, we have that ability. So I'm going to open up my snippets again and drag in here a custom content loader. So what this frame is telling, or what the XAML is doing, is telling the frame, please use for all your navigates this authentication content loader. So let's go ahead and look at what's in that class. My authentication content loader implements iNavigation content loader. And that interface has a few methods, but the most important ones are begin load and end load. You'll also see up here in my constructor, I've created a page resource content loader. Now that's bundled, it's included in the Silverlight runtime, and it allows you to fall back to the default navigation behavior if that's what you want. So inside of begin load, I'm going to new up a helper class loader async result, and that's just to make my async code a little bit prettier. But the main line here is, if the target URI that I'm trying to get to is the home page, let's do something. And inside of that, I can determine, okay, if the app is already authenticated, just go and navigate to the home page. Otherwise, please redirect to the login page. And then just to finish up my async code, need to call the user callback. And then if the user is not navigating to the home page, I'm just going to fall back and use the default loader logic. Similarly, in end load, I'll do something very similar. If I'm using the default loader, I'll just call end load. But if I had used my custom content loader above, I'm going to say, okay, if I actually pass static content, return a load result with that content. Otherwise, return one with the redirect. So now, if I run this, I can notice I get redirected automatically to my login page. If I hit About, I can hit it like I would expect. If I go back to Home, I once again get redirected to Login. I can enter in my name and enter the chat. Now what you'll notice there is that my password didn't seem very real, and that's because it wasn't. If I go back into my login.xaml here, you'll notice that I've got inside of my login button click a call to validate login. And validate login just says, hey, you're authenticated. But let's go ahead and actually use that authorization support that we added to the client HTTP networking stack and do this right. So I'm going to go in here and first tell Silverlight to actually use the client stack. And I do that via the register prefix on web request. And I simply pass in the prefixes HTTP and HTTPS, and the client HTTP option here. Then in my web client class, which I've moved up, I'm first going to set credentials, and do that by creating a new credentials class with a username and password that I've bound up to my login UI. And I'm going to set use default credentials to false, and that's because I'm providing my own login UI in this case. If I didn't want to do that, I could set this to be true, and you would get the dialogues that you would expect. And then I'll go ahead and actually kick off this request. And you'll notice as long as I come back successful, I will go ahead and navigate to the home page. Otherwise, we'll get an error. And we'll handle the error case in a second. But first, you'll see here I can type in Karen and my super secret password, which is the same, Karen. I'll hit login, and I get what I expect. So now let's go ahead and take care of this error case. In Silverlight 4, we introduced a new interface called iNotifyDataErrorInfo. Now, for those of you who are familiar with iDataErrorInfo, it's very similar. And we also added iDataErrorInfo. iNotifyDataErrorInfo is an interface that our binding and validation system knows about. And it allows me to asynchronously plug in validation errors to the binding and to the data object. So I'm going to go to my data object over here called user. It implements iNotify property change, but I'm also going to have it implement iNotifyDataErrorInfo, and then go ahead and implement this interface. This interface has three PMEs. The first is an errors change event. The second is a get errors, and the third is a has errors boolean. Now, in order to implement this, I'm going to create a helper, and that's just a public add errors method. And this is a way for people to externally, publicly push in errors to my user object. This uses a list, a dictionary up here, so I need to new up that error list. I'm going to do that in the constructor. And then going down here, I can very trivially implement this interface. So has errors will return true if that errors list count is not equal to 0. And get errors will simply query my error list for the given property name and return it if it's available. Now the last thing is to go back into login.cs and add a specific error. So I can go in here, do that. And so now, if I get back an error, I'm going to add to the current user the fact that the password field has an error and give it this error string. So running this now, it should all start to come together. I can type in my name. I can type in something that's not real. This is asynchronously going to go back out with my authentication header and come back with an error. I can go back in and see that incorrect password message. I'll go in and type in my correct password and log in. So there we have our classroom application with login capabilities, real authentication, and asynchronous validation. Okay, so one last thing inside of this demo. This lab is looking okay. It has a little bit of style. It's got a blackboard image in the back. But I'd like to make this feel a little bit more cohesive. So going into app.xaml, I am going to drag in a style that I've already created. And I've given this style the key basic text block sketch. So if I go back into my login page, for instance, I can select my username, go over here, go to the style property, and select that I want to use that style resource. So I get a little bit more of a handwriting look. And then I can go ahead and do that also to the password and all the other text blocks inside of my application, which is time consuming. So instead, what I'm going to do is go ahead and undo that, go back into app.xaml, and delete this key. And what that does is it creates an implicit style for my text blocks throughout all my application. So this style will, by default, get applied to all the text blocks in my application. So let's run that. Now you can see both username and password are affected, as well as the text block in, say, my About page. But making this just a little bit better, I'm going to go back into app.xaml, delete this, and add in a resource dictionary that I have made with a bunch of different implicit styles. And just like that, I can rerun this, and you'll see that my application now has, borrowed from Expression Blend Sketchflow, a little bit of a sketchy look. Oh. Let me restart this. Make sure that that got taken. Didn't, okay. Trying this one more time. I'll build and then run again. Oh. And there, you can see by just dropping in that resource dictionary, I now have a look that's consistent. I've got a new title. I've got my link buttons up here styled. I've got all my text blocks and text boxes styled. And here you can see that I've got a consistent look just by dropping in a new resource dictionary. So next. Okay. Oh. So in that, again, you saw the navigation loader extensibility feature that we added in Silverlight 4 beta. You also saw iNotify data error info. We've added a bunch of different data validation and data binding enhancements, and David Poole will be talking about that later today, and I'll give a pointer again at the end of the talk. And finally, you saw implicit styles. So one of the other business application feature requests that we get is rich text. And in Silverlight 4, we added two major features that help make this better for business applications. The first is a new rich text area control, and the second is BiDi support, allowing you to type both Arabic and Hebrew. So let's go back into our application. So in here, I'm going to go to the home page. And you'll actually notice, as I scroll down in here, that I have a rich text area set to be read-only, and that was where all my questions were appearing. I have a rich text area toolbar as well to help with formatting, which I had collapsed, and I'm now going to make that visible. And then in my text entry pane, that was actually an editable rich text area. So I can go ahead and run this again. I could type in my name here. Oh. And here is our text box. So I can start typing, hello, I'm rich. And I can italics or underline these, increase the size. But in order to really show off, let me go ahead and unclasp one other thing in here, which I forgot, which is this checkbox right here. And what this will allow me to do is whenever we send the message, I'm going to show you the XAML that actually gets sent across. So logging in again, I can type more richness. I can increase here, set this to italics. I can add in a smiley face. And then I can click this Show XAML tab and hit Submit. And so what's being created underneath the covers in the rich text block, rich text area, is a series of blocks, in this case paragraphs. And inside of my paragraphs, I can have both runs and spans. Runs are a series of texts that I can apply formatting to, and spans are a series of runs that I can then apply formatting across different runs. Also in here, you see that I have an inline UI container. And that, in this case, is for my emoticons. I've added an image. But there's not limited to images. You can put in here a data grid like you saw in the keynote, or buttons, or any UI element that you wish. So let me go out of here. And also show that you can also add hyperlinks. So I'm going to add a link to my blog here. Target it at a new window. And now when I'm in edit mode, this hyperlink acts just like text. I can increase the size. I can maybe make some of these italic. And I can go ahead and submit it. And you'll see that inside of my paragraph in the inline area, I've created a new hyperlink with all that formatting. But when it goes across the wire and into my rich text box, it now my rich text area that's read-only, it now actually acts like a hyperlink. So I can go ahead here and click, and you'll see my blog in a second, depending on my internet access success. And we shipped Silverlight Beta 4 today. Okay. Now, one of the other things, like I said, with rich text box is the ability, a rich text area, is the ability to type in different languages for BiDi support. And so to do that, to illustrate that, I'm going to open up another window. And in here, log in as Mona. Mona is a tester on the Silverlight team, and she speaks Arabic. So I can go in here and switch back and forth the localized language of my app from English to Arabic. And two things happen there. One is I localize some of the strings in my application. And the second is that I set on the root visual of my application one property, flow direction. And I set that property to be right to left. Otherwise, it would have been left to right. And I can toggle back and forth. So let's go ahead and log Mona in. And now she can start typing. Hello. She can type hello in Arabic, which unfortunately takes me a little bit longer than it takes her. But I'm going to zoom in here so you can really see it. And you'll notice that as I'm typing, the glyphs are changing and shaping to the correct one. So I'm typing hello, which I believe is pronounced marhaba, but apologies if that's not correct. And then I can switch in the same rich text area to English and say, I will speak English for, I will try to speak English for you, Karen, because, and then go ahead. One other thing to call out is, as I am going right to left, the cursor works as you expect. So in right to left languages, right means go to the beginning. So if I'm hitting the physical keyboard right here through the English, I'm actually going left on screen. However, once I hit the Arabic portions, I will actually go physically right on screen. Okay. And then let me go ahead and respond back to their thanks. I really need to work on my language skills. And I can go in here and increase the size again. I might underline portions of it or make others italics. And then I might realize that's just gratuitous. So I'll press Control-Z, and I'll do an undo of that. Notice the multi-level undo. And of course, I can also do multi-level redo. So a lot of great functionality that you need in rich text box just to make your applications more usable in the business environment. Okay, so I'd like to add 2 more features in this demo. The first is to show up very quickly how you can do clipboard accessed programmatically in Silverlight 4. So going back into my application, I'm going to go into home.xaml.cs. And in here, I've got a users list, and on my user list, I'm listening to the selection changed event. And inside of here, I'd like to, every time I select a new user, just grab all the address book information about that user and put it on the clipboard. Well, in Silverlight 4, that's very easy to do. Let me grab my snippets, just because they help. And paste in here. So what I'm doing here is I'm getting the user that was selected, and then very simply calling clipboard.setText and giving it the address book information for that user. So what happens now at runtime, when I run this, log in, I can select myself. Oh. I think I probably wiped the selection on this. Let me do that. So go back and actually hook up the selection changed event. And run this one more time. Thank you for your patience. Go in here, select myself. I now get a prompt. No, this is a placeholder prompt for the visuals are a placeholder for the beta. But you'll notice that I get prompted because I'm programmatically accessing the clipboard. I'll go ahead and press yes. And now when I go into Notepad, I get what I place on the clipboard. So just like that, programmatic clipboard access in Silverlight 4. So just to make this app a little bit more interesting visually, the last thing I want to do is add in some of the new fluid layout behavior that Blend added in Blend 3, but add with it a little bit of the items control behavior we added in Silverlight 4. So in other words, in Silverlight 4, now when an item gets added to a list box, you can actually provide a visual state for that and change how it enters the list box. So let's look at that. I'm going to go into Blend here, and I've created a list box that has a style similar to the one that we're using. I can right-click and edit not the list box style itself, but the items container style, and that means that I'm editing the individual list box item style. In here, I'll go into my states pane, and you'll see I have my normal common states, focus states, and selection states, but I also now have these layout states. And in the before loaded state, I actually want to have this list box item zoom in from the bottom. And in order to do that, I'm going to select this grid and go into my transforms and give it a rather large vertical translate transform. So you see it just disappeared. When I go into my loaded event, it'll of course reappear. But I'd like to go more smoothly, so I'm going to turn on transition preview up here and set this to, by default, take half a second. So now when I go to the loaded event, or the loaded state, you can see it zoom in. Doing that one more time, I'm going to make this a little bit more interesting by giving it an easing function. So let's give it the quadratic one. So now I get a little bit more of a natural zoom in. So let's go ahead and grab that style and put it into our application. I'm going to go to app.xaml, go to the XAML view, and just copy both the list box and list box item styles. Go into my app.xaml here. Drag drop these in. And then on my list box, set up my list box so it's using that style. Okay, so now when I run this, I will just appear. However, when Mona joins again, you'll see that she zooms in from the bottom. And just so you can see that again, I'm going to open this, oop, not mail, go away, go away. Open one more time. Again, just so you can see this. Have my friend Eduardo join. I noticed that it zooms up from the bottom. And just gratuitously, but not quite gratuitously, I'm going to open this up in Google Chrome because, as Scott announced today, we now, in Silverlight 4 RTW, when we ship, we'll have official support for Google Chrome and Silverlight 4. So there we go. Just like that. That's my... Okay. So again, just as a call out, you saw a bunch of rich text in that demo. Rich text area can be, like we saw, both in read-only mode as well as editable mode. The content model that we're using, if you're familiar with WPF, is very similar. We've got runs, spans, and paragraphs. We also support hyperlinks as well as embedded images, which can be embedded elements, which can be images or data grids or what have you. We also have multi-level undo. And for our by-die support, we have added flow direction as well as that shaping support within the text engine itself, which means that now you can type Arabic and Hebrew inside of Silverlight 4. A couple callouts for rich text area. Once you start playing with it, you might notice. For rich text area, in the beta, we only have plain text on the clipboard, but we are planning on making that richer post-beta. Similarly, right now, being able to serialize out the content within a rich text area, you have to do that manually. Post-beta, we'll be making that available just on a property on rich text area. In that demo, you also saw, again, programmatic clipboard, and again, the blend fluid layout feature with the items control, the list box item loaded and unloaded functionality that we've added in the beta. And of course, Google Chrome support. So a few other feature callouts that we're not planning on going into detail in any of the sessions, but we do want to make it sure that they're on your radar. The first is for controls, we are adding built-in mouse wheel scrolling support for several of our controls. We added scroll viewer events before, but now you actually have them hooked up on list box and what have you. We've added viewbox to the core runtime, so you no longer have to go out to the toolbox in order to get it. For folks building controls, we've also made it sure that the dispatcher continues to work when you're on the design service inside of Visual Studio or Blend. And we're also exposing now the runtime version to control libraries and application code in general. And that's important because, again, we always roll forward. We have a backwards compatibility story for the platform. Inside of graphics, we have a few more features. We now support all the different ping formats, so you shouldn't have any problems with your ping files. And we've also added composite transformed. And what this does is it adds all the different types of transforms that you used to have to use 4 classes for into one. As an other call out, as Scott mentioned in the keynote, we did add engine of all the platform assemblies, so startup time for most of your applications should be looking a lot better. And we've added CLR4 integration for things like the dynamic keyword. Joe Stegman will be giving a talk later today about out-of-browser enhancements, so I'm not going to go very deep into a demo here, but just as a call out, we do add for all out-of-browser applications the ability to give user notifications, notification pop-ups. We've also added a bunch of APIs around Windows positionings and size, as well as the ability to host HTML inside of your out-of-browser applications. We've also added a new way for you to break out of the sandbox for out-of-browser applications via trusted out-of-browser applications. Here we've relaxed a lot of, say, the restrictions we placed on networking requests. We've also given you file access to the My Documents folder. And we've also added native integration on Windows via COM support. And very briefly, I'd like to show you a quick demo that I've made for this. And I'll point you to Joe's talk to go into the nitty details. So opening up my feed reader application. In IE, on Windows in general, we have a Windows RSS feed service, and this is exposed to COM automation. So if I go into IE, you'll see that I have, for instance, all my feeds here. Inside of Outlook, I also can get to all my feeds if I decide to hook it up. And also in Windows Live Mail. You can see here I've got all my feeds. So here is a way for a Windows service that I would like to access in my Silverlight application. So I've done that with a simple feed reader application. And hit Control F5, and you'll see a couple main features going out here. The first is HTML support. I'm showing this RSS feed, all the items here through the web browser and control in Silverlight 4. And the second is, of course, just the feeds themselves. The feeds I'm using through the COM automation class that's being exposed, and I can show that code right here inside of my feed helper class. What I've done is created via the COM automation factory. I've passed in to create object the prog ID, and then using the dynamic keyboard and late bound support, I'm able to query for the root folder of all my feeds. I can then iterate through all the feeds in that root folder and populate the items. So just like that, in a Silverlight application that's running out of browser with trusted permissions, I now can access a Windows service on my box. Okay. So like I said, Joe is going to be going into a lot more detail into all of our out-of-browser support later today at 3 p.m. In this hall. Also, one of the new talks that we announced today was David Pohl's talk. This is going to be going into a bunch of the different business features that we added in Silverlight 4 beta, such as data validation, a bunch of enhancements on data binding itself, our commanding support, as well as going into further details on our printing APIs. Excuse me. Other great Silverlight talks that we have in the next 2 days. The first is Yavor's talk, also this afternoon, talking about the different networking stacks inside of Silverlight, as well as talking about WCF and its support for Silverlight. Brad Abrams will be talking about how reservices is even better in Silverlight 4. Glenn Block will be talking about MEF, the Managed Extensibility Framework, and how we've added in Silverlight 4 support for MEF in the SDK. Seema tomorrow will be talking about how you can profile your applications in Silverlight 4 and make your applications even faster and more performant. Keith Jones will be talking about how to test applications tomorrow. Pete Boyce will be giving an expression blend talk about how to use behaviors to add functionality to Silverlight controls from the designer's point of view, so that you don't need a developer to hook up all the additional behavior that you might want. And our last talk Vishal will be doing, and that will be going into the Silverlight 4 media features. All my code that I had today will be posted tomorrow on my blog, because I have to sleep tonight. And with that, I thank you very much for coming. We are really excited about Silverlight 4 beta, and I'm really excited to see everything that you guys And please, if you have time, your feedback is important to us and specifically to me. I like to try to give good talks, so if you have pointers, please let me know. Thank you.